Yeah, absolutely.
But what you have to know is a couple of things, okay? Navigationally, GPS today, we don't necessarily use the TVMDC model
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
because we got GPS, we got satellites, all this cool stuff,
So many tools. Right,
okay? The challenge is you still have to understand the principle behind this.
right.
So true is true north,
Yep,
okay? Now, where you are on the face of the earth can change.
absolutely right.
Okay,
Right.
your north will change depending where you're on the earth. So
Yep.
here's a question, Tony.
Okay.
Do you ever look at the runway numbers on when you're getting ready to take off? You've flown like I have a lot.
Yeah,
Do you ever look at the runway numbers?
I do. And I always actually wonder what,
What
each
they mean?
airport suspect. Yeah, it could be different,
Yeah.
but I always wonder
So
what it is.
if you add a 0 at the end of the runway,
Yep.
so if it's runway 19,
Right.
you add a 0 to that, that runway, when the plane is running down that runway,
Yeah.
guess what? It's going at approximately 190 degrees.
Oh, okay. Okay.
If the runway is 1, add a 0, it's at about 10 degrees.
Okay.
So a runway is a straight item. So if runway 19 is going almost due south, runway 1 is the opposite, going almost due north.
Okay. Now that makes sense. That makes
That's what they are. Now, it's not exact,
right.
yet it's what they use for the airports to line themselves up to be able to get on the runways.
Right.
So they know what general area they should be looking and working on.
Okay. Okay, great.
Okay. Now, so that's the basics of that. But here's the interesting part. Because there is what's called variation,
Right.
okay? Depending where you are on the face of the earth, the variation will change. I looked up for you in Seattle, I think it was 12 degrees to the east.
To the east. Oh,
I
okay.
think. You
Yeah.
can actually Google the phrase, what is the magnetic declination? That's the key word, declination or variation,
Right.
and your city.
Okay. Okay. And that'll tell you.
And it will tell you. So,
Nice.
so we'll go back and look at my compass, okay? Here, true north is up. So that's the outer circle.
Yeah, that's right.
So the inner circle is tilted 11 degrees to the west, which is exactly where my compass is.
Okay. Okay.
Because the magnetic declination for Annapolis, Maryland is 11 degrees to the west.
The west. Okay. Excellent. Excellent.
Now, what does that mean in business?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is nice. It's cute. Nobody's going to get out on the waters and navigate, especially if you're somewhere in, a landlocked area of Iowa or Nebraska, something of that nature. And I get that.
Right.
But here we go. True north, magnetic north. V is the variation, gives you your magnetic heading. So there's your M, TVM.
Okay.
Okay. Absolutely critical to understand the principles there.
Okay.
Okay. Once we understand those principles, now you can start to do it. So what is the variation? Those are things you cannot control. You can't control where you're on the earth, so you have to be able to calculate that.
Right. Right.
But now, let's think for a minute. In the last 4 or 5 years, has something happened in the business world that is beyond your control?
Yeah, all the time. Yeah.
The biggest example is the pandemic.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Yep.
There's a story of 2 companies. One company thrived through the pandemic.
Yeah.
Very similar company shut their doors.
Right.
One company had been around for 50 years. One company had been around for 5 years.
Right.
Which one do you think survived?
I'm going to say the one that had been around for 50 years survived, although I'm suspectful. Okay, good. I love learning. What happened? Give us the.
They did not pivot with the times.
Right.
They did not make their adjustment accordingly.
Right.
Both of these are restaurants. Both of them about the same size.
Right.
But the restaurant that had been around for about 5 years,
Yeah.
recognized what they needed to do, and within 2 weeks of the pandemic shutting things down, they had a system in place for takeout,
Got
pickup.
it. Got it.
The other restaurant didn't come up with that for about 2 months.
Right.
And then it was too late.
Right.
They struggled through the pandemic.
Right.
And they had a great name. I love the restaurant.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's the challenge you start to look at. So the variation of the things you can't control. So true north, variation. You've got to calculate things in that are out of your control.
Right.
On my podcast, I interviewed the admiral for the Naval Academy.
Yeah. By the way, and I'm interested to see that, by the way. Okay. Go ahead.
Okay. So on that podcast, he talks about a little bit about the things that he's done. But here's some other things he didn't go into.
Right.
When Japan had that 9.0 magnitude earthquake,
Yep.
he was in charge of the Naval Command Station in that part of Japan.
Okay.
When Jacksonville, Florida got hit with 3 hurricanes in one season, he was commander of a base there.
Okay. Okay.
He was commander of the Naval Academy when the pandemic hit. About managing under crisis is all about finding the variation and being able to make your adjustments.
Right. Right.
So that's what that really does come into. So the navigational principles are all about TVM, magnetic,
right.
And then we have to get and think about deviation.
Right. Right.
So the variation of things you cannot control, just can't.
Yeah.
Deviation you can. So every year as a kid on my boat that my dad had,
right.
He might get a new radio. And when he put a new radio up, he might have had that radio up there near the compass.
Right. Right.
The magnetic in a radio would pull the compass off.
Okay.
So we had to figure out what our deviation was, as well as know what our variation was, so that we could chart our course.
I love that.
Now, in business, what does that mean? Variation we can't control.
Right.
Deviation we can.
Right.
Who we put on a team, what projects we're taking on. If we're the leader, we're choosing the deadline, the times, and the place. All that starts to come in.
Right.
Those are the things that come into play when you start to really look at that.
Okay. Okay.
So that gives you your compass heading.
Yeah.
Back to your true north, that's where you want to go. That's your mission, vision, values. Variation of things you can't control.
Right.
Gives you your magnetic heading. Once you've got a magnetic heading, then you can figure out what's my deviation. Who's on this? Okay, I can adjust these people. Bob and Carol don't work together really well, so I'll put Bob with Tony.
Right.
Okay, I'll put Carol with Scott.
Right.
Carol can help teach Scott more.
Yeah.
So if I start doing that, putting the people together, as Jim Collins used to say in his book, get the right people on the right bus and get them in the right seats.
Oh, I love that. I love that analogy. I love
Okay?
that. Yeah.
There's the key parts. So once you've done that, then you've got your deviation calculated. Then you know where you're heading and you're going to hit your course.
Right.
Failing to do those, failing to take those into account is going to be the problem.
Yeah.
And that's where great leaders who lead multiple teams can keep both 2, 3, 4 teams going at one time.
At one time. Right.
That's where I come up with the title of my program called Managing Your Flight Deck. Because you've got multiple teams that you're controlling and running and leading.
Right.
And you've got multiple, your variation may be the same, but your deviation is going to change with each team.
Right. Right. Depending per team. I love that. That's really great, by the way, and that's really applicable in our work.
Absolutely.
Because there's so many changes that, so many new technologies that come out. You're always having to be challenged about which direction is that to get us to the success factor.
Now, here's the interesting part.
Yeah.
Washington, D.C.'s Reagan National Airport.
You know it well.
Pre-1998.
Yep.
The runway numbers were 18 and 36.
Right.
18 going due south, 36 going due north.
Right.
Over a period of time, the gravitational pull of the Earth pulls it off its axis. And in 1998, those runway numbers were changed to 1 and 19.
Oh my gosh. Wow. It changed a lot.
Well, they move it by a 5-degree lot.
Oh, 5 degree. Okay.
Okay. So when it passes a certain point, they'll move it over.
Right.
It's just fascinating. We talk about that in the book about, understanding that.
Right. Okay, great.
So
That's excellent, by the way, and really great for, the audience to be able to hear how to be able to navigate and adjust, but paying attention to the right thing helps them.
Like I said, my dad taught me to remember TV makes dumb children.
That's right.
So it took me a while to go back and remember true variation magnetic deviation compass, but I remember TV makes dumb children.
That's right. That's right. And audience, listen, you're listening to Gregg Gregory here. By the way, my fabulous followers, we're learning. This is what we're about, learning. And if you're interested, make sure to know at the very top here, I've got a QR code if you'd like to check us out and subscribe. And now we're going to get to the third question. We're gonna challenge Gregg, my friend, a little bit more. You tell me, are you ready for this last one?
I'm ready, baby.
Okay, we're gonna do it. We're gonna do it. And Gregg, first of all, also thank you. Right before we get to this last question, really appreciate you taking your time to help the audience we have here learn more, especially about team and cultures, because many of our audience members, this is a leadership podcast we're doing here today. They're all trying to navigate their course, and I appreciate you kind of helping them. But audience, don't forget, listen, fabulous followers, go get this book, One Team, One Dream. Okay.
Right on Amazon, you can find it. It's a bright red cover, so you can spot it easily enough. But the other thing we got to remember is if we're not learning and growing, we're dying.
Right. Right.
I made a funny comment earlier about the fact that I was in the part of class that made the upper half possible.
Right.
And that's true, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Bottom line is, I hated school. I absolutely hated it, but I love to learn.
Right.
So I'm all about finding new ways of learning. So on our teams, everybody's a little bit different on how we like to learn.
Right.
So that's kind of where I want to go. And that's what my new book is all about. So that's One Team, One Dream's been out for a few years now.
Okay.
We're working on finishing up, hopefully about later this year, called On Purpose Teams.
On Purpose Teams. Okay. Listen, I want to talk about that new book here in our third question. This is really going to challenge you, gosh darn it. But yeah, I'm excited to hear about this new book too. So let me just, if it's okay with this new book that's coming out, I know that it shares 8 elements. Can you share a couple of those elements with us? Not to give away the whole farm, but
well, I could share all 8, but we don't have that much time.
Okay.
So, because trying to illustrate some of these, there are 8 key elements. 4 key elements are what I say individuals need to focus on.
Okay.
So as a leader, you're going to focus on the elements that are going to be, I'll show you in a second here, that are all in blue.
Right.
Because those are individual elements.
Okay.
As a leader, you need to get each team member to focus on that for him or her.
Right.
Then you'll see some elements that are in red. Those are what the team needs to focus on as a whole.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
So we start looking, and it looks like this. You've got 8 words on the inside.
Right.
Trust, responsiveness, ownership, and mission. Okay.
Okay.
All about the passion or being relentless in the mission. It's about taking ownership. It's about being responsive. But I want to talk about trust on this side.
Okay. Okay, great.
Okay. Trust is the key foundational element. If you listen to any team talking about any success,
right,
any really good team, whether it's a sports team, a science team, a rescue team, it doesn't matter. They will usually say something to the effect of, it was a team effort, we worked together, and we had to trust each other.
Right, right.
Trust is the key word. Now, there's 2 types of trust.
Yeah.
There